We have with us again, present virtually, Professor Marianna Singala. Professor Marianna Singala is a professor at the University of South Australia and director of the Centre for Tourism and Leisure Management. Prior to her current position, she has been an academic staff at the Universities of Starchild and Westminster in UK, and the University of Aegean in Greece. Her academic credentials are combined with her professional experience in the tourism industry. Her interests include services and experience management information and communication technologies in tourism and hospitality, as well as wine tourism. She is a widely published and multi-awarded author, 9 books, numerous papers in academic journals, and keynote presentations in international conferences. She has a long record of leadership and participation in international research projects funded by various entities. She is a past president of Eurocre and a past member of the executive board of ICRI and IFITT. She currently serves as the executive board of Koessel. I now request Professor Marianna Singala to present her address.
Thank you very much for your very warm welcome, and my pleasure to contribute to your conference. I appreciate the invite. I've selected to talk about a topic that I think it has become quite topical, not because it was not, but I think the COVID has re-emphasized the necessity and the need to try to convert or at least make tourism something more responsible or transformative and sustainable to our society. Now, it was mentioned before that I have done research on the wine tourism industry as well, and probably you will see that many of the examples I will use here, they relate to that context. But as you can imagine, somebody could make inferences and transfer the knowledge to many other special topics in tourism as well. So let me share the screen, my screen with you, and I will start my presentation. Okay, so my topic is how can we actually make tourism experiences more transformational, and what the role of art can play on this process. First of all, can we make tourism experiences transformational? Yes, of course. We have heard or you have read many examples from spiritual tourism, religion tourism, volunteer tourism, even dark tourism, in terms of how they help people to reset their thinking, priorities, try to find a meaning or purpose in life, or to change behavior. Now, we want to do this in terms of transformational tourism experiences, but to a change that is a better one. Now, what do we mean by better? That's another question, but it has to be better from what it is at the moment. As I mentioned before, the need to have transformational experiences and outcomes have been reinforced, particularly after COVID-19 and all the implications or the reasons why this virus has become so serious and actually transferred globally so fast, infecting everyone and all aspects of life. I will use 3 different theoretical approaches to provide or develop a framework in terms of how we can design transformational tourism experience with the help of art. I have actually based my arguments on 3 streams of research. I'm sure you have heard or you have read papers and studies related to them. The first field of research refers to what is called transformative service research. This is a mainstream field of research. Basically, the purpose of these studies is to try to investigate ways through which people, by consuming services, they are not passive consumers, they are active contributors to the society and to themselves, because through the consumption of services, they try to contribute to the improvement or to the betterment of the well-being to themselves and to their communities around. And as you can imagine, the aims and the purpose of this research fits very well to what we as tourism researchers want to do when we are talking about sustainability and responsibility in the tourism field as well. I have borrowed concepts as well from the stream of research that refers to social innovation. Now, social innovation is something different to our traditional or conventional understanding of what is innovation that we usually define as a technological or as a technical perspective. Social innovation does not have to do necessarily with the technical or the configurational improvement or difference of a new product or the change of an existing product. When you do social innovation, basically what you do as a company is that you tell a story about your product, or you frame the experience or the offering of your product into a new context and a new value paradigm. So to give you some examples to see what I mean. For those that you might remember or you might have read, during the 50s, ice cream was the cheapest, most basic dessert that anyone could ever have. It would have been a disgrace, for example, if somebody would have bought an ice cream to bring it as a present for a dinner party or to make a visit to some friends. Now, during that time, a company that still exists called Häagen-Dazs has reinvented the ice cream product and in general, the ice cream experience. As you know, the value or the price of a Häagen-Dazs ice cream is highly expensive. The ice cream that they sell has more or less no difference to the product that it was previously regarded as the cheapest or less regarded product. But what they have done is to reframe the value or the meaning of the ice cream to people. And that's what they're selling them. They're selling the experience of having quality time with family to eat a good quality product that they have developed. And when you go to their shops, they're not just paying for the ice cream. You're paying for this ice cream experience with others, with their service-scape design or the totally different framing that they have put into it. During the last decades, Airbnb is doing the same. Airbnb has not reinvented the wheel. People used to share their second homes, their second rooms, their second sofas to other people even before Airbnb or even before the internet. What Airbnb has actually done is to reframe the concept of sharing into a new meaning or a new social value. And you probably can reflect on that by looking at the different slogans or the different expressions that Airbnb is using from time to time to sell or to promote this kind of new product or new experience. You have heard probably live like a local. They are not selling shared accommodation. They are selling or they are framing this product that is not new under the concept that you go on holidays, but you don't go to a commercial hotel very far away, or you don't see or talk to the locals. You live with the locals and you live as a local. So they have totally reframed their product by telling a story. Airbnb has also used the slogan, you are not what you have, you are what you share. Again, they are promoting shared accommodation under the frame that is opposite to capitalism. You don't have to buy and own stuff to prove that you have achieved something in life, which is the mentality of capitalism. They have reframed their product, their service consumption by saying, when you share, you show who you are, that you're a more responsible, a more reasonable and sustainable consumer than the capitalist and consumerist consumer. So this is what we mean by social innovation. And if you want to achieve it, basically, the major principle of social innovation is by diverting attention from changing the output, because most of the times you don't change the output, the final product or experience might be the same, but you change the story, the framing in terms of how people see things, how they interpret them, and how they make meaning out of them, or how they assign meaning to them. So we are looking in terms of how people make sense, or how they are assigned meanings to different values. The third concept that is also important in terms of how to design transformative experiences is a theory called Transformative Learning Theory. Now, based on this stream of research, what is important is not how to change what people know or how to transfer knowledge to them, but how to make people learn a new way how to learn, and how to give them a different stimuli or a different way of thinking to re-examine, reset, even pre-existing assumptions or the ways that they actually see things, to make, again, a new meaning or a new purpose in life. So by looking at these kind of fields of research, I was trying to see how art has been used in different contexts to help companies design transformational experiences. The other observation that I have actually seen is that when I looked at literature, looking at the design of experiences in general and tourism experiences as well, most of the studies and the literature, they emphasize 3 dimensions of experiences. How people behave, and you might reflect on passive or active behaviors, doing things or seeing things, what people learn or what they think, and they're talking about cognitive experiences, learning experiences, interpretation in museums, destinations, you name it. And they're also talking about senses, emotions, feelings, sensations, and all that stuff. There is something missing if we want to refer to transformational experience. And the dimension of the experience that is missing to make it transformational is what I would call, and many other people call, the spiritual engagement of people with the experience. And when I refer to spiritual dimension of the experience, I basically refer to why people should be engaged behaviorally, emotionally, or cognitively. Why should they be doing it? Why somebody should be going to a destination, talking to the locals and learning about their local culture, or eating their food, or going to a cooking class and demonstration to learn about local recipes? What is the purpose of that? Why should somebody be doing it? What is the meaning, the purpose, and how this can change the life, the mentality, or the way this person is going to behave in the future for the betterment for himself and for the whole society and community as well. So this spiritual engagement, it needs to be added in terms of how we want people to engage with experiences and why they should be doing it. So what is the role of art in terms of triggering or developing this 4th dimension of experiences, and how art can make people to develop social innovation or transformational learning and outcomes as well? When I look at the literature, I have found a very mutual or reciprocal relationship between art and tourism. And I'm sure you would agree with me that art is embedded in many various ways within the tourism industry. Art is being used to develop different festivals or events, music events, cultural events. Tourism has been the place where to perform art or to exhibit art. tourism landscapes, they have inspired people to write a book, to do some painting, to develop some music. Tourism uses a lot of art as souvenirs or as memorabilia. So there is always a relationship between the two. The key question between these two concepts is, do we really artificate tourism to make it more artistic or culturally oriented, or do we sometimes exploit the art and we commoditize it in the name of tourism economy or money? And the both principles, they actually apply. To try to summarize how companies have used art to create tourism experience and to make them transformational rather than a commodity or a commoditization process, I have developed a framework that I call it the 4C. I call it the 4C because every single dimension starts with a C, and it does expresses how tourism uses art, or it can use art to create experiences. That they have these 4 different dimensions in terms of emotions, cognitive, behavioral engagement, or spiritual engagement. The first way to use art in tourism experiences is when art is being used to be consumed. In this context, companies use art as an object. They embed it to design a servicescape, to decorate an hotel, a restaurant, a street. And the major purpose to do this is because they want mainly to influence the aesthetic or the hedonic value of the experience, to engage people passively, to consume, to see, to feel, to hear this artistic intervention, and to create a much more hedonic and aesthetic appealing atmosphere to influence the senses of people. So as I talked before, some examples of that will be how art is embedded in different cultural events, artistic festivals, music events, you name it. We have seen art being used to decorate tourismscapes. I'm sure you have been to many various companies that they use paintings, they might use sculpture, they might use photography, tapestry, sculpture in the exterior, nice artifacts as lighting, furniture, decorations to fit the environment. Destinations do the same. Currently, or not currently, last year in Dubai, they started a project, they call it the Jumeirah project, whereby they have invited many international and local artists to paint Jumeirah Road, this major roadway leading to the big resort and the most famous hotels in Dubai, to artificate or to do a beautification project of the whole destination and use it as a way not only to make an artistic servicescape for people to enjoy, but also to engage them to learn about the local artists, what they mean, and the local artifacts and cultural landscape of the destination as well. So it had an artistic, an emotional, sensorial, but also a cognitive learning aspect as well. Few years ago, when I went to Perth, I was going around the city, and the city was full of signs like this, whereby I was directed to download a mobile app, and the mobile app was directing me to navigate the city, to explore it by looking at different artistic elements that they were exhibited around the city, with the purpose to take me off the hotspots and go off-route, avoid the crowded places and discover new ones, but also get a better understanding of the local culture and how the locals live and who are the local artists and what they're doing. The second way in which art has been used, or it can be used in terms of design tourism experiences, is what I call art to be a commodity or to be commoditized. In that case, many touristic artifacts, they are converted into heritage, cultural arts, and then they're commodified and exploited for sales or for passive consumption as well. To give you some examples, I'm sure you have been to many different destinations and you have seen souvenirs, artistic objects being sold as memorabilia, reflecting again the local culture of wine making, wine drinking, whatever is the local context. There is a heritization process whereby some organizations, they try to convert artifacts into heritage products. So for example, think about when you go to folklore museums, items of a daily life that they have been used 50 or 60 years ago, they are exhibited in a folklore museum and they become heritage items. If you have been to Paris, probably you have visited the Gucci Museum, whereby you see sewing machines, designs of bags and clothes, that they are exhibited like heritage items, that they are valuable, and you're there to consume them and experience them and learn more about the local context. Art is embedded a lot in advertising. That's an old advertising of Greece as a destination. They use Acropolis, which is a heritage object, cultural, artistic, and they don't only include it in the photography, they even use a slogan, Greece, a masterpiece you can afford, making inferences to the value of art and that is accessible and available for everyone to understand and consume. The third way, art to be co-created. We have so many experiences in tourism whereby, for example, winemaking, cooking, dancing, they are used as a co-creation activities whereby people become the artists themselves to learn in a very active way about the local context. And this is another way in which the tourism and the art meet together and they create this aesthetic, active, cognitive learning, even in some, to a certain extent, self-development activities for people. The last way in which art can very significantly help companies in the tourism field to develop what I call transformative tourism experiences is to use art as a catalyst of the mind. There are many examples whereby art can be used to make people see new things or to see existing things in a different way. You can use art to develop the people's capability to interact and talk with each other, or to use it as an object to start discussions and debates. You can use the art to inspire people to start thinking and re-examining assumptions and theories. And I'll give you some examples. One of the companies that is worldwide famous in terms of the use of art to achieve that is Absolute Vodka. Some years ago, you might have seen advertisements of the spirit. It was an advertisement campaign in a series called In an Absolute World. And in various circumstances, on the TV, on newspapers, on magazines, you would have seen artistic advertisements like this: in an absolute world, and there is nothing else. And what do you see? A man getting pregnant and the wife becoming probably a successful businessman. So in an absolute world, probably we will have husbands and wives and everybody will be equal to follow whatever they want in a career. That's something in terms of how art, it can help people to trigger or to inspire them to rethink and re-examine the way we live and how it should be. In an absolute world, probably politicians are not going to be liars, or they shouldn't be liars. In an absolute world, factories will be sustainable, and instead of pollution, they will create oxygen or water. So art, it can be used in a way to trigger people thinking and inspiration. Some examples from the tourism sector. Few years ago, when I was doing a study about transformative wine tourism experience, I visited a region called Swan Valley in Perth. They had a project that they call it Sculpture in the Valley. Basically what they were doing is that they have used an artist. Now, can you imagine this person being an artist? A former farmer, an engineer? When we're talking about art, people's mind always go to high art. This is not correct. Art can be anything. So what they have done is to invite this person, who is actually a famous artist, apart from being an engineering, and you can actually investigate it yourself. You can Google his name and see most of his artifacts, or even donate to his work. He's a very famous artist who uses recycled material from his engineering and car repair factory to make people rethink about what is recycling and how this can help to create a more sustainable world. So what this person has done, and the destination of Swan Valley, is to take many of these artifacts of this artist, locate them in different places around the wine valley, and invite people, and particularly children, to investigate, play, and by playing, learning about art and sustainability, what it is and why it is important. So you see here some of these exhibitions. As you see, all the materials of the art is from recycled material, and they all refer to local plants that they come from Australia, so that the people can learn about the local fauna and flora and how recycling can help to preserve the natural environment as well. So his major target was kids, and how to get kids interested, how to attract their attention, and how to make them rethink and get them into a much more sustainable behavior in the future. So art was the trigger. Another example in terms of transformative service experience I take it from an island where I come from, Santorini. Santorini is also famous for the wine. They have a very interesting cultural landscape, because the landscape of Santorini is very unique. It's volcanic. They cultivate grapes in a very unique way, in a horizontal rather than vertical way, and this is very unique, and they have actually submitted papers to become World Heritage Site because of that. But the problem with Santorini is that, as you know, it's a very popular, famous island. The land is very expensive, and it is better for the landowners to build hotels rather than cultivate the grapes. So vineyards are dangerous. The winemaking processes probably are going to disappear in the future because of that, and there are not many vineyards left, although they are more than 100 years old, because in Santorini they never had phylloxera. Now, how many tourists that they visit Santorini, you think they know about this? Very few. The local tradition, the value of the geology, the local landscape, nobody knows about it. So what the local winery has done, they invited many artists, and you see here 13 names, local and international, to use local objects to create artistic artifacts that they could exhibit in the winery, to trigger the tourist's mind to rethink about their behavior, their role as a tourist, and their role as citizens of the world as well. Have a look at the type of the scarecrows, artistic exhibition and objects that they have created. This is a scarecrow, an artistic one. Go away. It doesn't look like a typical conventional scarecrow, does it? Not really. It is not for the birds. Go away, it is for the tourists. Go away, you are destroying our local geology, landscape. You have done the island like an urban environment full of hotels. without being able to see the local land. The artist was inspired by graffiti that, as you probably have seen, it has been written in Barcelona, in Amsterdam, and many other cities that they are suffering from over-tourism. Tourists go away. So imagine a tourist visiting this winery and reading this, go away, you're not welcome. The artists themselves, during the exhibition, they were present. They were discussing with the visitors, either the local visitors or the tourists, why they were inspired and they have designed this kind of artifact. What was the meaning or what they wanted people to reflect and reassess. This is another scarecrow. Again, it doesn't look like a typical scarecrow. It's basically an adaptation of a fresco painting from a local museum in Santorini. Now, Santorini, as probably you have read, it attracts about, I don't know, 40,000 or so tourists per year. Only 1% of them visit this museum that is even more important than the Acropolis. The purpose of this artist was basically to highlight to the people, whoever was visiting the vineyards and the wine museum, to look at this artifact. The only difference from the original one that is exhibited in the museum is that the artifact, the person in this painting, does not hold grapes. It's holding feces. So the artist has actually adapted this museum artifact to the local context of the winery. Very few people have actually recognized it, that they visited the winery, because, as you know, probably they shouldn't have been to the museum to know what is the history or the cultural background. And the purpose of the artist was basically to reinforce and try to inspire people to learn about what is the destination that they're viewing and learn about the history and visit some local cultural exhibitions. This is the last example. This looks more like a typical scarecrow, isn't it? But then when the visitors approach it more close up and they look at the t-shirt that the scarecrow was wearing, what would you basically see? You will see Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, and the Greek Prime Minister at that time being close together like a couple. Now, this exhibition took place during the economic crisis in Europe, and particularly when Greece was in very big trouble, when very heavy measures to our economy have been enforced by the EU and particularly from Germany. German-Greek relations were not very good. There were a lot of publicity in Germany, bad and good publicity, particularly bad, saying Germans do not visit Greece. Greeks hate you. If you go to Greece, Greeks will kill you. And I'm not exaggerating. This political, economic crisis has also resulted in a cultural crisis between the two nations. And the purpose of this artistic scarecrow, it was again to make people rethink about the relations of nations, the role of tourism, the economy, and the cultural exchange of people among themselves. So I hope it does make sense in terms of how art can be used, as I said, as a trigger to mind, to try to inspire and trigger people's mind, and probably and hopefully a creative dialogue between different stakeholders in the tourism industry as well. So what is the core message? Art should not be seen only as an object to be consumed, commoditized, or only to trigger the emotional or the aesthetic value and engagement of people with it. Art has much more value that you can get out of it if you try to also use it to facilitate thinking, to trigger creativity and inspiration, and also to foster a dialogue. And I'm sure you know many more examples than the ones I have shown you. So thank you very much. I hope I have given you an interesting context that you can use in terms of design experiences, or at least doing research in terms of how art can create a very valuable reciprocal relationship with our industry. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sigala, for your very insightful information and speech. If anyone has any questions, Professor Sigala can answer right now. I don't think we have any questions. Thank you again, Professor, for your insightful information on transformational tourism experience. And I hope we as researchers can use your information on how to use art in tourism experience and the importance of art in tourism experience and experiences as a whole. We now have come to the end of the second portion, that is the keynote addresses by two professors, that is Professor Sara Dolnikar and Marianna Singala. Thank you again for your addresses.